The fluorescent lights in the boardroom buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow over polished glass and steel. Darius Cole, the youngest black CEO in the Fortune 500, sat at the head of the table, his posture sharp, his tailored suit precise. He was used to rooms like this, silent, heavy with calculation, but today the silence tasted different. A smirk slid across the CFO's face as he rose, paper in hand. "Gentlemen, before we proceed, some light entertainment." He flicked the projector on. The screen filled with an image, a grotesque caricature, a black man in chains labeled with Darius's initials. Laughter rippled, sharp and hushed like glass breaking underfoot. Darius's jaw locked. The sound of his own heartbeat drowned the air. He forced his voice low, steady. "Turn that off," but the CFO leaned in, lips curling. "Lighten up. Don't forget who signs your checks." The room didn't breathe. Even the interns didn't move. Darius felt every eye on him, waiting, measuring if he would flinch, if he would erupt, if he would prove their unspoken script true. His hands pressed flat to the table, nails biting wood beneath the varnish. Rage burned, but he swallowed it whole. He met the smirking face across the table, every fiber of him taut. Then the door clicked open behind him. A voice spoke, cold and clipped. "Mr. Cole, the board has reached a decision." The words hung like a blade mid-fall. The boardroom was too quiet. Not the calm quiet of concentration, but the thick, waiting quiet before a blow lands. Darius Cole sat at the head of the glass table, back straight, hands folded over a black leather portfolio. He could feel the fluorescent hum overhead, vibrating against his skull. 20 eyes bored into him, calculating, expectant, waiting to see if the CEO would fracture. The chairman leaned back, fingers steepled. His voice was smooth, too smooth. "Mr. Cole, we've reviewed your leadership over the last quarter. We've identified concerns." Darius's jaw tightened. "Concerns," he repeated evenly. The CFO gave a short laugh, filling the silence. "You've been bold, I'll give you that. But boldness doesn't excuse recklessness. The board has voted. Effective immediately, you'll no longer have unilateral authority over budget approvals or strategic hires." The words slammed down like iron gates. A deliberate stripping. Darius's voice was low, deliberate. "You're cutting the legs from under your own CEO." A director spoke, her tone clipped. "We're ensuring accountability." The CFO smirked, pushing the knife deeper. "And frankly, Darius, leadership is about trust. You've struggled to cultivate that." Laughter flickered, short, sharp, suppressed behind hands. Darius felt it like glass in his veins. He scanned their faces, cataloging every smirk, every averted eye. His voice cut across the room. "You don't question my results. Only my place in this chair." The chairman's expression didn't flicker. "That's not the issue, isn't it?" Silence. He let the pause stretch. The ticking of the wall clock roared in his ears. He forced calm into his breathing. The CFO leaned forward, tone coated in mock camaraderie. "Look, lighten up. You've done well. But let's be honest. This company needs cultural balance. Clients need to feel comfortable." The word comfortable stung sharper than a slur. Darius's hands pressed flat against the polished glass, reflection of his dark skin stark against the cold surface. "Comfortable," he said softly. "For whom?" No one answered. The intern in the corner scribbled notes furiously, head ducked. The head of HR shifted in her chair, lips tight, but didn't speak. Complicity filled the air like smoke. Darius felt his heartbeat hammering. His mother's voice echoed in memory. "They'll smile at you until the moment they cut your throat. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you bleed." He swallowed the fire rising in his throat. His voice came steady, iron-wrapped. "You've made your decision. I'll remember it." The chairman gave a polite nod, dismissive. "We expect your cooperation. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The CFO couldn't resist a parting blow. He whispered, too loud to be an accident. He was never supposed to last this long. The words cracked the silence. No one corrected him. Darius rose slowly, the scrape of his chair deliberate, controlled. His eyes swept the room, locking each of theirs for a fraction of a second. Not one held his gaze. He walked toward the door, every step echoing in the sterile chamber. His pulse thundered in his ears. His mind was already shifting, cataloging allies, gathering fragments of plans. At the threshold, he paused. Without turning, he spoke low, cold. "This isn't over." The door clicked shut behind him. In the hallway, the buzz of office chatter felt sharper, every whisper bending around his presence. Phones stilled. Conversations clipped. His figure in the glass walls reflected back at him. Tall, unbowed, but marked. Inside the boardroom, muffled laughter resumed. Darius walked, fury coiled tight in his chest. Not rage wild and reckless, but a cold, precise fury, the kind that waited, the kind that built, the kind that would one day return. The hallway stretched ahead like a gauntlet. Darius's shoes struck the marble floor in steady, deliberate beats, but every step carried the weight of eyes on his back. He could feel them. Employees paused at their cubicles, whispers slicing through the hum of phones and keyboards. He didn't turn his head. The glass walls reflected enough, glances stolen, smirks hidden. A receptionist quickly averting her eyes when she realized she'd been caught staring. His assistant, Maya, hurried to match his pace. Her heels clicked sharp against the floor, voice low but urgent. "Sir, maybe slow down. People are watching. I want them to watch," Darius said flatly. His eyes stayed forward, locked on the elevator doors at the end of the corridor. Maya hesitated, clutching a folder to her chest. "They'll twist whatever they see. You know that?" A group of junior analysts stepped aside as he passed, too quickly, too rehearsed. One of them muttered under his breath, "Low," but not low enough. Guess the king just lost his crown. The laughter that followed was clipped. Nervous, but it landed like a slap. Darius stopped, turned, the air stilled. His gaze pinned them, unflinching. The analysts froze, their smiles wilting under his silence. He didn't say a word. Didn't need to. The quiet stretched, suffocating. Then he turned back and walked on. Inside the elevator, the walls closed in. Polished steel reflected him in fragments. Sharp suit, tight jaw, the flicker of heat in his eyes. A middle manager slipped in just before the doors closed. "Mr. Cole," the man said, voice falsely bright. "Rough meeting?" Darius didn't answer. The man chuckled too loud in the confined space. "You know how it is. Board politics. Don't take it personal." Maya's eyes flicked to Darius, pleading silently for restraint. But Darius's voice came quiet even. "I don't take it personal. I take it systemic," the man blinked, words choking off. The elevator hummed. Nobody spoke again until the doors opened. Back in his office, blinds drawn, Darius stood at the window overlooking the city. The skyline glittered with wealth, with power, with the illusion of permanence. His hands curled into fists. Maya set the folder on his desk gently, as though placing something fragile. "They're daring you to break, sir. They'll wait a long time." His reflection in the glass was steady, but he felt the fire burning deep, coiled and hungry. Outside, the whispers grew louder. Inside, the silence was sharper. The trap was tightening, and Darius knew silence from the hallways was not neutrality. It was a verdict. The office lights dimmed behind him as Darius sat alone, jacket draped across the chair. The silence was heavier now, thicker than the boardrooms, thicker than the hallways. It pressed against him, forcing his thoughts backward. He leaned into it. Memory came sharp. 17 years old, sitting in a cracked plastic chair at a scholarship interview. 3 white men across the table glanced at his resume, then at each other. "Impressive grades," one said. "But you're from Eastfield High, that's rough territory." The second leaned in, voice smooth as glass. "Tell me, Darius, do you really see yourself fitting in at an Ivy League environment?" Darius had forced his spine straight, hands clasped tight in his lap. "I see myself leading it," he'd said. Their laughter had been quiet. Polite, but he remembered every note. He exhaled. The memory fading, but its edges cut deep. Maya re-entered with a mug of coffee, setting it on the desk. Her voice was soft. "You haven't eaten?" He didn't answer. His eyes were still on the skyline, city lights flickering like restless eyes. "You're thinking about them again," she said. He turned, finally meeting her gaze. "I've been fighting the same war since I was 16. The boardroom is just another battlefield." Her silence was acknowledgement, another memory. College dorms. A drunken voice calling him diversity hire as he walked past. Professors double-checking his essays as though words couldn't possibly belong to him. He remembered correcting them, always calmly, always carefully. "Don't give them an excuse," his mother had said. "They'll build one if you let them." Her voice came to him now, though she'd been gone 5 years. "Every scar you carry is a reminder, son. They'll try to make you forget where you came from. Don't let them. He whispered it aloud like an invocation. Don't let them. Maya's head tilted. What did you say? Nothing, he muttered. Then louder, steady. They think tonight cut me down, but they only reminded me of every step it took to get here. Maya set her jaw. Then make them regret it. The words lingered between them. Not encouragement, command. Darius turned back to the window. The city stretched endless. His reflection stared back at him, shadowed by every wound, hardened by every scar. The fire inside had a long memory. And it was waking. The conference room smelled of stale coffee and caution. Darius stood at the far end, the city skyline behind him, while two members of his executive team shifted uneasily in their seats. Their eyes didn't quite meet his. He spoke first, voice clipped. You were there. You saw what happened. The COO, a broad man with thinning hair, cleared his throat. Darius, the board. They went too far. But you know how delicate this is. Delicate, Darius repeated, the word hard as stone. They humiliated me in front of every senior manager. And you sat in silence. The man flinched, but the HR director jumped in. We couldn't escalate in that moment. It would have made things worse. Worse for whom? Neither answered. The silence was louder than their excuses. Maya sat at the side of the room, notebook open, but pen still. Her eyes moved between them, sharp, unblinking. Darius leaned forward, palms pressing against the table. You think neutrality protects you? It doesn't. Silence is consent, the COO's voice dropped. We're not against you, we can't risk our own positions. Not when the board is unified. Darius let the words hang. The cowardice in them filled the air like smoke. You've convinced yourselves survival is loyalty. It isn't. The HR director looked down at her lap. I have a family, she whispered. So do I. His tone was iron. And I refuse to teach mine that fear is the price of a seat at the table. The room crackled with unspoken things. Anger, guilt, fear. Maya finally spoke, her voice steady. The truth is, if any one of you had spoken in that moment, the narrative would be different. But you chose comfort, the COO bristled. Easy for you to say. You don't have shareholders breathing down your neck. Maya's reply was sharp, cold. And yet you still sleep fine while someone else takes the bullets. The words cut deeper than Darius's could have. Silence followed. Darius straightened, pulling his jacket from the back of his chair. His movements were precise, controlled. I won't beg for allies. If you don't have a spine, stay out of my way. But don't expect me to forget. He walked to the door. Hand on the handle, he turned back once, eyes sweeping the two executives. History doesn't remember the comfortable. It remembers the complicit. Then he was gone, the door shutting hard behind him. Maya caught up in the hallway, breath quick. That was a declaration. No, Darius said, voice low, steady. That was a reminder. If they won't stand with me, they'll stand exposed when this burns. They walked in silence through the glass corridors. Outside, the city lights glimmered indifferent. Inside, the walls felt like they were closing in. But Darius's fire only sharpened. Allies were proving hollow. Which meant when the counterstrike came, it would be his hand alone at the helm. And he was prepared for that. The screen glowed against the dim of Darius's office. A video grainy from a hidden phone camera played on loop, the CFO's smirk. The caricature on the projector. The laughter that sliced through him like knives. Maya muted the clip, but the silence was no relief. It's everywhere, she said. Every outlet. Every platform. They're replaying it nonstop. On the muted screen, headlines scrolled. CEO overreacts to boardroom joke? Thin-skinned leadership at Fortune 500 giant. Coal cracks under pressure. Darius leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled against his lips. Overreacts, his voice was flat, cold. That's their angle. Maya nodded, jaw tight. They're framing you as volatile, difficult, exactly the stereotype they want. The phone buzzed. His PR advisor's voice crackled through the speaker. Darius, listen to me. We need to issue a statement. Calm, measured, dismissive. Laugh it off. If you push back, you'll confirm their narrative. Darius's reply was ice. So I laugh while they drag me through mud? That's survival, the advisor shot back. Maya's eyes flashed, but she held her tongue. Darius spoke slowly. Survival on whose terms? The line went quiet. Then, if you fight this, you'll alienate investors. Think carefully. The call ended before he could answer. Maya stepped forward. They're circling, sir. The media. The board. Even some of your team. They want you isolated. They already isolated me, Darius said. Now they want to bury me. The office door creaked. His COO stepped inside, face pale, voice low. Darius, I didn't leak it. You know that, right? Darius didn't look up. Did you stop it? The COO faltered. That wasn't in my control. Everything is in someone's control. Darius's eyes lifted, pinning him. And silence is still a choice. The COO swallowed hard. The press wants a villain. Don't give them fuel. Darius rose, the skyline glittering behind him. They already lit the fire. I'll decide how it burns. That night, Darius sat alone watching the video play again and again. Each laugh, each smirk. Each headline was gasoline. He whispered to himself, voice low, dangerous. They think this ends me. His reflection in the glass answered back, sharp, unflinching. They have no idea what I'm about to do. The private dining room of the Lexington Club smelled of oak, cigar smoke, and polished power. Darius sat at the long mahogany table across from 3 board members. No assistants, no press, no distractions. Only silver cutlery gleaming under dim chandeliers. The chairman poured himself wine, slow and deliberate. Mr. Cole, he began, voice smooth. We've come to extend an opportunity. A graceful exit? Darius kept his hands folded, his expression unreadable. That sounds like a resignation you want me to write. The CFO leaned back, smug. It's better than the alternative. The market doesn't forgive messy scandals. Nor do shareholders. The word shareholders hung like a threat. Darius's voice was calm. If I walk, you'll rewrite history. Say I was unstable, difficult. Say I was the problem all along. The HR director's lips tightened. You've already become a liability. Our clients are nervous. The headlines speak for themselves. Darius let silence stretch. Forks clinked in distant rooms. The hum of muted conversation bled through the door. Finally, he leaned forward. You think I'll go quietly? The CFO smirked. You don't have a choice. Maya's warning from days before echoed in his head. They're daring you to break. Darius's voice dropped, low and steady. You're right. I don't have a choice. But neither do you. The chairman's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? A truth, Darius said. He rose slowly, adjusting his jacket with precision. I built too much to be erased by cowards in a dining room. He left without another word. Outside, the night air bit cold. His phone buzzed in his pocket, an unknown number. He answered, a clipped voice. Mr. Cole, we have information you'll want. On your board. The line went dead. Darius stood under the street lamp, shadows stretching long, fire surging in his chest. The trap had tightened, but now he had a lead. The office blinds were shut tight, the city hidden from view. Darius sat at his desk, phone pressed to his ear. The anonymous caller's words replayed in his mind. We have information on your board. The voice on the other end now was sharper, familiar. Mr. Cole, I'm sending you documents, offshore accounts, falsified expense reports, kickbacks. Names attached. All theirs. The line clicked dead before he could respond. Moments later, files flooded his encrypted inbox. Maya leaned over his shoulder, eyes scanning fast. This is dynamite. More than dynamite, Darius said. This is structural collapse. By noon, he'd summoned 2 investors to a discreet meeting. They arrived wary, eyes sharp with calculation. Mr. Cole, one began cautiously. You know the board is losing patience. Your name is dragging stock value. Darius slid the file across the table. Read, pages turned. Silence stretched. Then the investor's breath caught. Kickbacks. Money laundering. These are facts, Darius cut in. His tone was cold, surgical. The people demanding my resignation are stealing from the very shareholders they claim to protect. The second investor's voice was low, incredulous. If this gets out, it will, Darius said. One way or another. The question is, do you stand with thieves or with the future? The silence that followed was not resistance. It was calculation. The balance of power shifted in that pause. Back in his office, Maya's eyes shone with restrained fire. They're scared, sir. I could see it in their faces. Darius's reply was steady. Good, fear is leverage. She hesitated. But going public? It could drag you down too. His gaze hardened. I've been dragged through mud since day one. This time I'll decide how the story ends. That evening he dialed the chairman directly. The man answered with bored disdain. Darius, I trust you're reconsidering our offer of resignation. No, Darius said. His voice carried steel. I'm reconsidering yours. A pause. Excuse me? I have documents, evidence, offshore accounts, kickbacks. You wanted me silent. Instead, I'll be very loud. The chairman's voice dropped to a hiss. You wouldn't dare. You're right, Darius said. I won't dare. I'll act. He ended the call without another word. The night deepened. Alone in his office, Darius stood at the window. The city spread wide like a battlefield. His reflection stared back, scarred, hardened, ready. They thought they'd caged him. But tomorrow, he would set the fire himself. The boardroom lights blazed too bright, the air charged like before a storm. Darius entered alone, footsteps echoing on polished marble. The long table stretched ahead, lined with faces carved in arrogance and fear disguised as authority. The chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Cole, we expected your resignation this morning. Darius set a black folder on the glass table. You expected silence. Instead, you'll have truth. The CFO leaned back, smirking. Another speech? Spare us. Darius snapped the folder open. Papers slid across the table like knives. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, emails signed in careless haste. Millions siphoned, he said, voice low but carrying. Shareholder money funneled into your pockets. Clients bribed. Laws broken. The room froze. One director fumbled for the papers, scanning rapidly. Her face drained. This is real. The CFO's smirk faltered, but he forced a laugh. Fabricated, desperate. Darius's eyes locked on him. Then explain why your signatures on 3 separate transfers to shell companies in Zurich. Gasps. The silence that followed was jagged, dangerous. The chairman's voice rose, brittle. You've crossed a line. No, Darius said, standing taller. You did. And now the world will see. Maya entered, setting a laptop on the table. One click and the screen filled with headlines waiting to be published. Reporters already briefed. The directors shifted in panic. One whispered, If this leaks, we're finished. It's already leaked, Darius said. His tone was calm, merciless. The only question is how much you'll lose before you admit what you've done. The CFO slammed a fist on the table. You think you've won? You'll burn with us. Darius leaned forward, voice like steel cutting glass. No, I'll walk out clean. You'll be remembered as thieves who tried to silence the man who exposed you. His words hung heavy. Final. The chairman slumped back in his chair, rage and fear warring across his face. Around him, the board fractured. Voices rising, accusations spilling, alliances breaking apart in real time. Darius didn't join their chaos. He simply stood watching. Silent. Absolute. For the first time, it was their turn to choke on the silence. Maya's voice cut through the uproar, calm and unshakable. Gentlemen, the cameras are waiting outside. You'll want to decide what you'll tell them before the door opens. The board fell into stunned silence. Darius gathered the remaining papers, tucking them under his arm. The reckoning has already begun. Then he turned and walked out. The hallway outside buzzed with reporters, microphones flashing like lightning. For once, the whispers weren't aimed at him. They were aimed at the men now scrambling behind the glass walls. Darius breathed in deep. The air still tasted like smoke, but this time it was theirs. The storm finally broke. By dawn, news networks were ablaze with leaks. Anchors spoke his name with urgency. Scrolling headlines screamed fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The board's photographs flashed on every screen, their polished portraits now branded with scandal. Darius sat alone in his apartment, blinds half drawn, the television muted. He didn't need sound. He only needed to watch them fall. At the Lexington offices, chaos devoured the marble halls. Employees clustered in hushed knots, scrolling through phones, whispering as security escorted directors out with boxes under their arms. The empire that once suffocated him was imploding in real time. The CFO, red-faced and wild-eyed, shouted at guards as cameras trailed him. This is slander. Fabrication. His words hit the glass doors and slid to the floor, powerless. The chairman kept silent, lips pressed thin, as if stoicism might shield him from ruin. It didn't. His name was already crawling across ticker tapes like a death sentence. In a sterile conference room, Maya stood before a clutch of journalists. Calm, deliberate, her voice cut clear. These documents confirm years of misconduct. Mr. Cole refused to participate in the cover-up. Instead, he brought truth forward. Pens scratched. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned in like predators scenting blood. Maya finished with precision. Accountability has no hierarchy. No immunity, no escape. That afternoon, regulators raided the company's headquarters. Files disappeared into evidence bags, servers shut down, executives cornered by subpoenas. The walls that had once echoed with whispered deals now rattled under the weight of reckoning. For the board, the collapse was absolute. Darius walked through the front lobby hours later, not escorted but invited. Employees looked up from their screens, some with awe, some with guilt. None dared stop him. In the corner, a young analyst whispered to her colleague, "That's him. He's the one who stood against them." The words reached him, but he didn't slow. Inside the ruined boardroom, glass still glittered from a shattered tumbler. The long table was empty now, chairs abandoned like relics of a fallen empire. Darius stood at the head of the table, the seat once reserved for the chairman. He placed both hands on the cool surface, steady, resolute. "This is what it cost," he murmured to himself. Maya entered quietly, setting down a file. "Investigations are formalized. Arrests will follow within days." Darius didn't look at her. His eyes remained on the vacant chairs. They thought they owned the silence. But silence doesn't last. Maya studied him. "You know what happens now, don't you?" He finally turned. "Yes, the old guard collapses. But something has to rise in its place." Night fell heavy. Across the city, screens lit up with breaking news, the empire of corruption crumbling in public spectacle. And in that collapse, Darius stood unbroken. The reckoning was over. The rebuilding was about to begin. The city skyline burned gold with sunrise when Darius stepped onto the terrace of his penthouse. The glass rail hummed faintly under his hand as he looked down at the streets where news vans and cameras still swarmed. Overnight, his name had become something more than a headline, symbol, weapon, myth. Inside, his phone rang incessantly. Reporters, politicians, investors, everyone wanted a piece of the man who had dismantled the board. Maya stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, her voice steady. "They're asking if you'll assume the CEO position officially." Darius didn't answer. He kept watching the city stretch awake, thousands of windows catching fire in the dawn. Later that morning, he entered headquarters for the first time as its undisputed figurehead. The lobby was hushed, employees standing straighter than usual. Eyes followed him, not with disdain but with unease. Respect and fear blurred together. He passed the receptionist's desk where a young black intern sat rigid, wide-eyed. She whispered, almost reverent, "You didn't let them bury you." The words struck deeper than applause ever could. In the boardroom, only 2 chairs remained occupied, government-appointed monitors. Papers were stacked high, investigations grinding forward. The chairman's seat sat empty, a hollow crown waiting. Maya read from her notes. "You can stabilize the company. Investors are begging for reassurance." Or, she hesitated, "You can dismantle it. Walk away, let the carcass rot." Darius finally sat at the head of the table. The silence felt heavy, like a courtroom before sentencing. "I didn't survive this to inherit their throne," he said quietly. "I survived so their kingdom never rises again." That afternoon, he faced the press himself. Cameras whirred, flashes cut white against his suit. He stood behind the podium, voice controlled, unflinching. This company became a fortress for corruption. It thrived on silence, intimidation, and the erasure of truth. "I won't rebuild what was designed to oppress. I will repurpose it. Funds will be redirected, leadership dismantled, and its wealth used for transparency and equity." "The old guard is finished." The crowd erupted. Shouts, questions, cheers. He answered none. His words had been verdict enough. By nightfall, global media crowned him not just a survivor, but an architect of reckoning. Editorials framed him as a disruptor, a reformer. Protesters carried placards with his image painted in bold strokes. Yet alone in his apartment, he sat with whiskey untouched, staring at the skyline again. The price of victory pressed hard. Maya's voice broke the silence. "They'll come for you again. New enemies, new battles." Darius exhaled slowly. "I know." He turned from the glass, his face resolute. But they'll never mistake me for silent again. The city roared outside, sirens, traffic, voices rising into the night, and above it all, in the quiet of his high-rise, Darius Cole prepared for the next war. The empire was gone. But the man who dismantled it had only just begun.